You know, there is limitation in rationality. There's a lot of book about 65 just try to explain things, capitalism or Marxism or like that big word like that. But sometimes I think that's really hard to explain.
Itu bawa dipegang tangannya, begitu kepalanya dipukul dengan pentong, kaplok dan dibunuh. Yang sejak mati gitu.
Jadi tidak berani, ya. Saya terus sembunyi kan gitu ya.
Mungkin saya terlalu kebal ya Pak. Setelah anak saya yang jadi korban itu baru saya seperti hancur betul hati saya itu Pak.
Keluarga saya dianiaya, difitnah, teror. Saya ingin berbuat yang tidak baik, misalnya ingin melakukan pembunuhan, penganiayaan yang seperti mereka lakukan pada keluarga-keluarga saya.
Masalah perikatan itu, jadi untuk menghilangkan jejak pikiran saya, jangan terlalu emosi.
During this chaos in 1965, I would say there's a big choice. Whether I would collapse, I would grow. So if I still keep the hatred, it's like I have a bomb inside me. You know, I think I have suffered enough. Why should I suffer more?
Genjer ning ledokan pating kelelet. Genjer ning ledokan pating kelelet. Emae dole teko bubuti genjer. Emae dole teko bubuti genjer. Oleh sak tenong mungkur sedot sing tolak-tolak. Genjer saiki wis digawa mulih.
Mas Budi ingat, kenapa kemudian sampai ke panti asuhan ini?
Ingat.
Gimana?
Ini pertama-tama gara-gara saya berada di panti asuhan, saya tuh terkena masalahnya agak rumit. Keluarga saya dianiaya, difitnah, teror. Saya merasa karena saya kesini terkena masalah-masalah politik, tidak seperti anak-anak yang lain. Mau ke sekolah aja tuh di jalan diajak-ajak itu diolok-olok.
Olok-oloknya bagaimana?
ngoroknya gini, itu dia anaknya PKI, anak PKI sedang lewat minggir gitu, saya disindir gitu. Padahal saya sudah mendam perasaan itu mendalam, tapi malah teringat kembali.
Kemudian Mas Budi misalnya ya, lewat kembali tempat di mana Mas Budi dulu dianiaya, rasanya bagaimana?
Rasanya itu ya
I first met Budi while conducting research on the relationship between culture and mental health in Indonesia. Budi was in an orphanage and he was being treated by a psychiatrist that I was collaborating with. I had met both of his parents, Pak Mudakir, his father, Bumini, his mother, and I was thinking at the time, why is this boy in an orphanage if his parents are still alive? They had placed him in an orphanage because the environment in his village was so difficult. They were so stigmatized, they were so oppressed, they were so ridiculed, all because of this perceived past affiliation with the Communist Party. This is 40 years after the event, and Budi was still suffering. So in order to understand the experience of Budi and others affected by the trauma of these mass killings, we need to have a sufficient understanding of history and politics and culture as reflected through their experience and understood by them.
The political climate in the years leading up to '65 was really very tumultuous. There was particularly tension between the Communist Party and leftists generally, and on the other side, the army and more right-wing conservative political parties, which mirrored the Cold War tension between the Communist bloc on one side and the non-Communist bloc on the other side.
Sukarno, as president, saw himself as a uniter, as somebody who would be able to unite everybody in Indonesia. He continued to insist that Indonesia remain neutral in the Cold War. For US policymakers back in Washington, neutrality equaled pro-communist.
By this time period, both the US and the USSR were trying to have as much as possible influence in Indonesia. Indonesian Communist Party was the third largest communist party in the world. It was the largest outside Soviet Union and China. That was how big it was.
Indochina falls.
Washington realized that the Indonesian army was not only not communist, they were anti-communists.
The same is true of Indonesia.
In May of 1958, the US reversed its policy and now beginning to support the Indonesian army.
In the years leading up to 1965, the Communist Party in Indonesia exacerbated the tensions in Indonesian society by advocating a land reform program that pitted small farmers against wealthier landowners. This created enormous conflicts in the countryside, particularly on the islands of Bali and Java, and it helped fuel the violence to come.
In East Java, for instance, many of the people who had much lands were religious leaders. So that's why they put also religious tone to it. That the PKI were non-believers and they were Marxists and they were against God, against religion and things like that.
There were many who were anti-communist who always resented that Sukarno considered the Communist Party such an integral part of national life.
Politics was taking place at that time mostly on the streets, and so there was a great deal of political tension in the air.
So during 1965, There was already an expectation that at some point the army was going to crack down on the PKI. The only question was, what would be the best moment for doing that?
So basically, I was born as the third child. My first is brother, then sister, and then me. Actually, my family was quite well off. My father was maybe one among the very few who had a car. He had 2 cars. He had several motorcycles. At the time, it's already wow. And he loved to show off with these stupid vehicles. I was the apple of my father's eye. So in a way, I had very good self-confidence. In my own surroundings, I was considered a leader. My father was very, very good at making me work harder and harder. He knew that I wanted to be a doctor. So I had to be number 1. So that's my life, practically just playing hard and studying hard.
Jadi sales lah. Terus diantar dari sini ya sampai Bantul, Randaan, Wates, itu naik sepeda. Ya sepeda supaya. Sebelum mengenal musim ini, saya sudah punya rencana pasangan saya yang telah hilang, saya mencari. Pas waktu itu masih di SMP, waktu di SMP ya, SMP kelas 3 itu ya, dia ya punya kesan ya dengan saya. Kalau dia lepas dari saya, dia itu seakan-akan kehilangan. Dan saya sebenarnya gini, walaupun kamu masuk di kena peristiwa masalah itu bertahun-tahun kemana saja, saya tidak akan lepas darimu.
Ya, sebelum peristiwa itu keluarga saya itu ya cukup bahagia ya. Saya itu ketua RT yang paling disegan. Karena pegawai negeri waktu itu kan makmur ya, bisa menyekolahkan anak-anak. Kalau waktu itu perempuan tidak boleh sekolah, tetapi bapak ibu saya itu tidak kolot. Jadi anak-anak itu semua disekolahkan. Saya ingin jadi guru. Karena peristiwa, ternyata semua cita-cita, angan-angan saya itu kandas.
Yeah, it was really good old days. Yeah, I remember that, like really. Yeah, and the most thing I remember about when I was a kid is my pant. I wearing the pant was waterproof pant, like for swimming. Oh, everyone touching, you understand? Because it's something really rare in Bali. It was the first time in my village. I remember drive a car. It was real. The car, only few people have car. My parents going overseas a lot. I think for conference and like maybe meet Communist Party in China. I knew my dad is an important person, and my mother was really famous for the faster typist in the village. Back then, typing is like a lot to do with writing. It's a really subversive act. My mother was very political.
Tenang, dulu waktu belum kawin itu saya terus di kota-kota saja memburu. Di Beleng saya, Beleng yang boleh memburu. Terus maret yang nyoba mulai ngelot. Terus peresmian luntur ke peresmian PKI itu. Ada pakaian menjadi PKI itu lagi saya turut juga gitu. Nge bagian tahun 4 pun nikah pun bapak miwok. Ada kan lekra, PNI lekra kan.
Man?
Yang terus Pak, kembali ke sing nggo takut yang janger niku. Nggih, hajat yang liyu luluh na pundoh kenten. Lu wani-wani pundoh kenten.
Lagunya
Sahabat yang kan lagu-lagu. Kayaknya nang kedok mati kele. Oleh sok tenong mangkur sedot sing toleh-toleh. Genjar ame sami namanya.
Saiki wis digawa mulih.
Ada apa ya, Pak?
Bahaya, ini bahaya, Pak.
Oke, gimana?
There's a lot of debate about what exactly happened on the night of September 30th and the early morning of October 1st, 1965. But some things are known for sure. What is known is that very early in the morning, a group of soldiers from the President's Guard and some other soldiers, mostly middle and lower ranking soldiers, kidnapped 7 high-ranking army officers, 6 of them generals, and then killed them. That action, which was led by a Lieutenant Colonel Untung, became known as the Untung coup. It wasn't a very successful coup because within 12 hours, other elements in the army, led by General Suharto, staged what I would call a counter-coup, a reaction to the Untung coup. And by the end of the day, had reestablished their authority and had crushed the Untung coup.
This is something that I always like to repeat to students because many Indonesians usually don't know the difference of the two. There was the event which occurred on October 1st, 1965, and that was a military operation done by the September 30th movement. And because of that military operation, 7 high-ranking military officers were killed. But then somehow certain group or maybe influential person controlled the media and they said that the coup or the putsch was done by the communists or members of the PKI. But then the Indonesians usually tend to merge these two together. Every time they mention the September 30th movement, they have to put the term PKI, as if it was the PKI who did it.
So the PKI was cast as treacherous, murderous, atheistic.
The army was telling people that the communists were about to go out and kill large numbers of people and to torture them and to gouge out their eyes and to mutilate their bodies and so forth.
The propaganda campaign encouraged people to believe that the PKI was on the verge of carrying out their own campaign of mass killings. And therefore, in order to forestall or to prevent this alleged PKI campaign to kill them, they had to kill the PKI first.
Mengganggu untuk mengingat semua masalah-masalah yang lalu.
Kalau Mas Budi teringat lagi dengan kejadian itu, seperti sekarang kan diajak omong-omong Pak Dokter tentang kejadian itu, rasa badannya bagaimana?
Rasanya tuh panas, dadanya seperti ditusuk-tusuk jarum gitu, terus kepala saya tuh pusing seperti kehabisan oksigen.
Datang pertama memang berbeda dengan teman-teman yang lain. Memang mudah tersinggung, seringkali muring-muringan. Dan yang mengagetkan itu memang dulu itu mudah sesak napas. Saat kambuh sesak napas, memang dia menyebut-nyebut kakaknya. Kakak saya dipanggil. Terus saya tanya, loh ada apa masalahnya dengan kakak saya itu menjadi korban penganiayaan? Cuma itu jawabannya.
Sawah, Mbak. Sawah sarungannya Mbak. Sawah. Mas.
Mereka sering ngejek saya bahwa saya itu anak PKI itu. Padahal mereka sendiri nggak tahu apa yang namanya PKI.
Kira-kira Budi rasanya bagaimana waktu dijadikan korban itu?
Takut. Kadang nangis.
Sedih ya? Pernah?
Yang paling menjengkelkan tuh kalau apa ya, mutung gitu.
Mutung bagaimana?
Ya, kalau dimarahi diam, tapi langsung pergi gitu loh.
Saya ingin berbuat yang tidak baik, misalnya ingin melakukan pembunuhan, penganiayaan yang seperti mereka lakukan pada keluarga-keluarga saya. Kalau aku ingin melawan mereka, saya harus mempunyai botol dan bahan kimia, bensin, kain dan korek. Itu termasuk saya itu saya ledakan di rumahnya itu agar mereka merasakan kesedihan dan kesakitan yang saya alami bersama keluarga-keluarga saya.
I was 13 years old. To me, it was like a sudden shock, yeah, because what I remember was that when there was some kind of rumor or news about the rebellion of PKI and things like that, I didn't understand anything except that the situation in the house was a bit more intenser. And my father started to be more nervous. He read newspapers and he talked with people, and one day he started to burn his collection of books. He had a very good collection of books. He loved reading, and he used to be a teacher. I remember, why are we doing this? It's a big shame. He said that you don't understand, it's very dangerous. I can be arrested because of these books.
Ada masalah peristiwa kegiatan kita ini. Saya diteror. Disangka ini Ubyang pintu ada sesuatu yang nggak diinginkan. Di situ tanya. Saya dicurigai ini itu, ya lah. Dicurigai mau ada perencana pembunuhan itu enggak. Tapi saya itu enggak ada ke situ. Tapi ada bagi orang yang curiga pada saya. Nah diambil kerjaan. Jadi orang tua enggak tahu sama sekali.
Malam-malam ada tembak-tembakan itu jam 1 malam. Waktu itu kan saya takut. Bapak saya disuruh nabuh gamelan, ndak sanggup karena mau tugas luar. Lalu Pak RW-nya itu mengatakan, kalau begitu kamu itu PKI, nggak mau nurut sama perintah. Bapak saya itu tidak pernah ikut-ikutan. Kamu lihat saja nanti, kamu tak anggap PKI. Ada teman bapak saya itu datang ke rumah, bilang sama ibu, katanya, Mbak Yu, Mas jangan ditunggu-tunggu karena Mas tidak pulang.
When 65 happened, I was 5 years old. In the night of the killing, in the night of the looting, is so fun because everyone not sleep, but hiding. I remember we went to hide in the temple, the house next door burning, just like to see firework in the night. Then people are carry water in the night.
Mikir pernah mengkap di pinggan kelapa di sini. Nak kita barai nanti ke di bang ke.
Sampun
kita tembak tentara. Kecil mengkap yang paling ngenan. ketakut kan di pas putur aku balenya gitu pendapatnya.
Based on that accusation that the September 30th movement was done by the communists, anybody who was accused of PKI, and they could be taken at any moment and brought to certain prisons, without any sufficient legal procedures.
The vast majority of people who were targeted were ordinary people who had no idea of any kind of political conspiracy or plot to overthrow the government at all.
It was as if members of the Democratic Party in the United States today all of a sudden discover that the Democratic Party has been declared illegal and that they become rounded up and imprisoned. The situation was rather chaotic, and so anyone could take advantage of that moment to exact personal revenge.
Ada sesuatu karena diambil saya sendiri, masalah itu ya cara kasarannya belak-belakan masa anak gadis. Ada orang seneng, itu ada orang, ada teman yang seneng sama dia, yang seneng sama dia itu anak RT-nya. Nah itu ada kaitannya. Ada orang yang menunjuk saya, dia itu anak RT-nya. Itu sehingga saya ini diambil orang.
My father happened to be the leader of Chinese organization, and Chinese was linked closely with PKI at the time. And as a result, he was the target of so many, attacks.
People who had some economic resentment toward the Chinese, that was the time for them to air their anger and resentment, regardless of whether the Chinese were communists or not.
The Chinese in Indonesia are Indonesian, but have suffered great discrimination because of perceptions of higher educational status, wealth, and privilege.
One day in the morning, I heard my father's name being shouted here. Alex, Alex, go to Alex, Alex's place. And then people threw stones and axes and whatever. And at the time, my father ran out of the bedroom, and still in his, shorts and very shirt, undershirt. He ran down there, leaving everybody was in. I still remember my father ran, leaving us, you see. At that moment, I remembered the image of him as a hero collapsed. And after that, almost daily, then we would have friends coming because their husbands were also arrested.
I think also my mantri, yeah. That's what I found. We never find a good doctor like that who can give us lolly. That is the best human being we have. The fact we wanted to be sick, so in order to see him. And then I remember people drag him, and I find his body. Before the river was so high, they buried them up there. See, under that, in the middle between these bamboo trees and up there. Okay, so that's where. So there's a full of blood here. I think they killed them in the front of their house, dragged the body up there, and they just buried by the leaves. This was the stain here. Just behind my house, okay? I was playing like that kid just now. And when I walk with my auntie, we saw guts. It stopped being fun. They just kill people like charu, mutilated, yeah.
The mass killings began in mid-October 1965, when General Suharto sent special forces into central Java But then the special forces moved on to East Java in November.
The killings were not spontaneous, but were in fact orchestrated by political powers, particularly by the army. In Bali, for example, where tensions were high, where there was a very substantial Communist Party, the killings did not begin there until early December 1965, a full 2 months after the coup. And what this suggests is that the killings began in Bali, as they began elsewhere, only when the army arrived and began consciously to mobilize local political parties and youth groups to carry out killings.
The killings were often enacted by the military wing, but also by mass popular involvement, often in a coerced sort of way, in that people would be given the choice of to kill or be killed in order to prove their loyalty to the state.
Di Megai di perkembangan bertiang, cepet yang mati, tokoh-tokohnya diantar ke semua, ngin ke pemancar nengenah kan. Wajah 16 nih tokoh-tokoh PKI. Waktu ada jatah terus ada ngambil motor jeep nih ke ngejatah.
Ada temennya Pak Kletan?
Ada temen ajak masuk ada di itu. Terus tuh bawa dipegang tangannya. Begitu kepalanya dipukul dengan pentong. Kaplok kan dibunuh. Sud ngai bang kan enten komando macut kita. Plaklok. Bom mati entong ke bang. Saya sing mati ya sing keplok kena dilah.
Bapak masih ingat siapa yang Sirai?
Oh itu tiba-tiba ajak itu. Ngajak di PKI ya masih gitu. Ngajak di PKI. Yang saya mati gitu. PKI ini itu terancam tuh bengaan panik dadina.
That's what I find it very, very devastating about this violence. It's so much about the political neighborhood, like who initiate the killing is really more like the guy next door, or sometimes your cousin, or sometimes even a key figure like one of my neighbor who in Bali we call him Ndagi, the architect of the 1965, because he's a party leader, the nationalist leader, and he is the one who got a list who is member of the communist organization in my neighbor. A lot of people freak out, so they come to Ndagi to ask for protection. What he just do is like kill that one, and then you will be safe. So a lot of my family come there to be safe.
There were some foreign journalists who reported on what happened, but their reporting was drowned out by a common prejudice that Indonesians were simply an inscrutable people to whom violence came naturally. And since the killing was presented as just the killing of communists, there were many people in the United States and Western Europe and in other countries who felt that, well, it was okay.
Ada sepasukan gitu, tentara dengan didampingi pemuda-pemuda, saya tidak tahu dari kalangan mana gitu, itu geledah rumah ini. Kemudian pokoknya di seluruh digeledah semua, ada kasur dibuka, terus dobrak-abrik semua gitu. Dan mereka ngambilin apa-apa yang berharga, yang berharga mereka ambil gitu. Adik saya yang nomor 6 itu dipangku salah satu tentara gitu. Ditanya, ada pistol enggak? Papi punya pistol enggak gitu? Oh punya, banyak, dia bilang gitu. Adik saya nggak tahu dengan segala imajinasi, karena masih kecil sekali. Nah, Mbah saya ini cerita mami kalau tadi adik saya di pangku gitu. Terus ditanya, dia bilang, dia jawab seperti itu. Mami kalap sekali saat itu. Jadi adik saya tuh, saya mesti nangis kalau cerita soal ini. Saya nggak tega karena adik saya masih kecil, badannya kurus gitu, diantemi mami gitu ya. Jadi mami dalam kalapnya itu mukul dia, kuat dia bilang, kamu nyilakain bapakmu, kamu gitu. Mami bilang gitu, jadi tung gini dengan sini. Saya nggak tega sekali. Lihat adik saya yang masih kecil gitu, badannya kurus gitu, diantemi mami, digabloki mami dengan kalap, dan mami juga nangis. Itu sangat bagi saya sangat enggak tahu saya gimana rasanya, sangat membekas sekali itu bagi saya yang paling menyakitkan rasanya.
I don't remember how many months after that I had the opportunity to visit my father in the prison for the first time. I saw maybe around 1,000 people being sunbathed.
As a form of kind of torture.
Yes, and they were waiting for the food. And very often I heard that they would make a choir, beautiful choir. I am hungry together. Yeah, you see, like 1,000 people singing together, hungry. Then I saw my father, and he said, "Be good." And then he took off his ring and gave it to me. Pada waktu itu kita dipikir malah seneng karena boleh nengok seluruhnya. Jadi waktu terakhir besok paginya diberi kabar papi tidak ada karena pakaian semua dikembaliin. Waktu itu saya ngerti, wah mati. Tapi ya wis lah, gimana gitu. Paling yang tinggal ya hanyalah kebencian sama antara harapan mungkin dipindah.
My father, they lock him up first. You understand? They lock him up for pemeriksaan, interrogation. And then he sent him back to Ksima, to the... No, I think my sister said.
Ya, katanya sebelum Ji meninggal diusung di keliling kota, katanya Bapak penjahat inilah Pak, Bapak PKI gitu, di keliling diarak, keliling alun-alun, banyak keluarga yang melihat tapi tidak berani, hanya menangis. Akhirnya saat itulah Bapak saya dibawa, dan untuk terakhir kalinya kita tidak tahu juga gitu, kalau dia itu sudah meninggal.
Dia itu diajak ya setelah waktu senja sore sudah mulai gelap ya, sudah ketika mulai ya, saya punya ya sepupu juga di sini yang mengajak keluar. Bapak kesini keluar, ada yang suruh cari saya. Ya dirangkul dia keluar, kemudian setelah sampai di tempat mana di jalan ya, keluar rumah itu ya mulailah dia diparang sama pedang ya, pakai pedang ke sini. Dia kepalanya dipukul, ada otaknya mengecerot itu apa namanya, sampai perutnya itu ditusuk-tusuk dengan pedang itu tengah kelewang. Matanya ditugel dengan penjelokan itu. Supaya kalau hidup supaya tidak melihat. Ya, jadi ya dia itu akhirnya sampai ya meninggal, ya langsung sudah dikubur di sana.
Tapi beberapa hari ini saya masih agak sering teringat sama kakak-kakak saya. Itu yang saat dikeroyok 5 aparat itu, terus sampai ke Garota.
Jadi keluarga saya ini selalu dipojokkan gitu. Sampai anak kecil itu bilang sama saya, wah anak komunis, anak PKI. Ya, karena saking jengkelnya saya sering difitnah. Ayam tetangga dijual sendiri, nyarinya di tempat saya. Tempat ini di sawah yang sering memfitnah saya itu, dia bawa sepeda kan. Saya ambil, saya lari ke kota. Minggu paginya dicari orang-orang. Terus saya dibawa ke pos keamanan. Di situ saya diajar.
Saat waktu kakak dianiaya itu, dia tuh menjerit-jerit nangis itu loh. Lalu memanggil saya, terus saya itu ingin menolong, ingin lari itu loh, lari menolong kakak saya. Terus itu malah sama pemudanya itu saya diseret mau dipukul gitu.
Nggak lama saya langsung ke ini, langsung turun ke jalan, gabung sama teman-teman. Ya memang sih dipandang rendah sama masyarakat, tapi mau gimana lagi, toh saya nggak punya cita-cita untuk hidup di jalan.
Saya ingin membalas mereka karena saya tuh tidak terima masa depan kakak saya tuh hilang.
Mas Budi, rasanya masa depannya bagaimana Mas Budi?
Saya merasa masa depan saya itu rumit. Masa depan saya itu seperti menghilang dari pandangan saya.
The killings continued until about mid-1966. One reason that they tapered off was because Suharto was able to become the de facto president.
The accepted range for the number of people killed after the coup in 1965 is between 500,000 and 1 million. You can see that the range is quite wide. The reason for that is that those who did the killings, those who were the perpetrators, remained in power. And so, unlike other instances of genocide, they were in a position to conceal what they had done.
In an event that is comparable to Rwanda or Cambodia or in some ways to the Holocaust, there was this black hole of silence.
There were many, many thousands who remained in jail, never having been tried or charged. Some of them were in prison camps, some of them were in prison islands, and a good number, of course, died in custody. Some because they were formally executed, and some because they simply got so old.
Jadi itu kita tuh ruangnya tuh boleh dikatakan pahit lah. Banyak cambukan tuh pukulan. Sampai kepala saya ini retak nih, Pak, nih. Itu retak nih. Ada bekasnya gini, satu dan. Jadi kita dianggap binatang. Luar aja enggak pilih. Mau kencing, mau buang air besar, mau kecil, dalam. Ada kayak rantang tuh, kayak plastik tuh. Di kantong itu.
Di penjara itu dia diperlakukan ya supaya sakit hati begitu. Ke waktu makan itu katanya di makanan itu diisi batu ya, diisi pasir itu nasi itu, diisi pasir, kemudian ya makanannya karena lapar itu ya terpaksa juga dimakan ya, ditelan ya sampai pasirnya, jadi nasi itu tidak dikunyah lagi ya.
Itu sehari saya bisa menunggu teman atau itu sehari 4, nanti 2 hari lagi 5, sudah meninggal, nggak ada, sakit. Memang dalam penderitaan itu bagi orang yang nggak senang di situ letaknya. Jadi saya itu akan diambil, dikatakan diambil nyawanya lah, secara diam-diam. Nah itu.
The other thing that the regime did was to develop its own propaganda campaign to make accepted its own version of what happened. And its own version was that the communists had killed the 6 generals and that Suharto had intervened to save the country.
The September 30th movement was one event, but the Suharto regime kept the memory of that event alive, and every year that event was commemorated. A monument was built at the site of the killing of the 6 army generals.
Monumen ini dipersembahkan bagi 7 pahlawan revolusi, korban kebiadaban gerakan 30 September PKI.
The government made a movie, Pengkhianatan G30S. Not only that the government made that movie, but they forced the students to watch that movie year after year. You know, like in an advertisement, if that's what you see every time you watch TV, and then it will stay in your mind.
The constant theme of the Suharto regime's propaganda was that the PKI could reawaken, could come back to life and terrorize people in Indonesia.
Any discussion on the part of people who have suffered these things or any criticism immediately led to allegations that these people must be communists and they must be done away with.
Kan pimpinan agama beban diurusan sing PKI lah. Urusan agama kan gak enak kan pimpin PNI kan tanda. Maaf lupa desa siapa yang masuk PKI lagi supaya 7 keturunannya tidak memakai kerajangan tuh. Tidak memakai kerajangan.
The army propaganda also concentrated on Gurwani, a women's organization that had an affiliation to the party. And according to army propaganda, Gurwani members were present at the killings of the 6 army generals.
The story was that the generals were taken to a place just outside of Jakarta where Gurwani women danced around them half naked or naked like witches and then castrated them and sliced their genitalia with razor blades.
The violence in the rhetoric of the regime was so intense that it was an easy incitement to actual violence against women.
Di zaman itu ada Gerwani di sini?
Ada beberapa tuh. Kalau Gerwani dia diambil oleh Tameng itu. Kalau yang Tameng yang mengambil.
Ya, dikawini
untuk
ya.
diamankan.
Ya, diamankan dia.
Supaya aman.
Diambil pakai istri
oleh Tamengnya.
Ya.
My mother was Gerwani. My mother was arrested for a couple months, and then she met the guy who look after the arrested, the guard, and then she married to that guard. When she released him, she married direct. She come out.
Try to come back to your house?
Yeah, but my family not allowed. Who they making accused that my mother was a prostitute, you know. There's even people making a pamphlet in my house. My mother was a prostitute. I hate my mother. Yeah, I want to kill her. I don't know why, because I think she left me. Yeah, because nobody take care of me like that. Yeah.
Even those who weren't detained lived in constant terror if they had any kind of affiliation, however remote, with the PKI. And that kind of affiliation could include, for example, having a family member.
The other members of family, they don't want to hang around their kid with me. Or people, watch out, don't hang out, he's communist.
All of a sudden, I became a loner. Because at that time, PKI children, lepers, lepra. So in school, I would have no friend. You know, nobody was brave enough to be close with me because at that time, it's very easy. You see, like, hey, oh, tonight you disappear, bye-bye. So I understood that they didn't want to be friends with me because they're afraid. So I learned to feel like, do you think I would die without you? I will live. With or without you, I will live, you know, things like that.
Rumah dobrak-abrik. Nanti jaket saja nggak boleh. Jadi saya menjadi melarat, menjadi miskin. Itu karena diambil. Kalau nggak diambil, ya lumayan. Bisa dijual, bisa untuk sekolah anak-anak. Lani itu yang kena stres tuh Lani itu. Lulus, dia mau pengen di kedokteran, ya masuk. Tapi Gama minta 1 juta. Saya ngasih, saya bilang kok 500. Nggak boleh. Jadi semua full kita berjuang diri. Maka anak saya dari kecil itu sudah saya didik. Harus bekerja. Biarpun kamu jual kacang, kita harus bekerja. Tunjukkan bahwa kita Chinese yang benar-benar Chinese. Bukan yang Chinese-Chinesean itu. Aku ya bilang itu. Ya, no? Berani ya.
People were stigmatized, you know, no matter how good you are, but since you are related to someone who was a member of the PKI, then you are a bad person and you are a danger to the nation, but also you are a danger to our neighborhood. That's why we need to keep watch on you.
Indonesian state label those people, they descended until their grandson, they consider them tidak bersih lingkungan and environmentally unclean. So what does it mean? You cannot be a teacher, you cannot be a civil servant, you cannot be a soldier. We go to the Hebden village office. You know what happened? Okay, I cannot give you clean environment later because your father was like this. Your uncle was like this. So, how do you know? They give us all the photo of my family, they still keep them in the village. Yeah, so you have to behave, you know. You have to be careful.
Oh, terus bawa mana-mana. Ngeurena nenek tadi batu ngerodong. Oh. Diantar oleh kepala markean.
Paksa bekerja.
yang mau dijo pimpinnya yang direct ke pengen rumah kan. Anu diberi makan saja, tidak diberi uang. Hanya ngeroyong sampai kelar mau saya ngomong. Jadi cuma ya tahanan di tempat, ya kami juga merasakan tahanan di tempat.
The very bad thing about finance was because people robbed. You know, we had a bicycle repair shop, so it would be quite normal for somebody to come and then say, I want this, I want that, and then that's it. We didn't dare to oppose them. But then after some time, maybe my fear disappeared, so I decided to fight. You know, I still remember when some young soldier came arrogantly, I want this, I want that. I said, you must pay. He said, you oppose the soldier? I said, you know, when anger was in my heart, I said, let's die together. But then I remembered my family, so I said, go to hell. They said, okay, take them. Take them. We should have.
President Suharto established a new military dictatorship where it was the military that was in charge of the government. Indonesia's foreign policy was neutral in the Cold War. Suharto, when he came to power, began allying with the United States. He did manage, through foreign aid, foreign investment, selling off Indonesia's natural resources on the world market, to engineer a type of economic growth that involved some trickle down to ordinary Indonesians. And so that's why Suharto was able to stay in power for so long.
There were many, many thousands who remained in jail throughout the country, at least until the late 1970s. Those who were released from prison bore forever the stigma of being a former political prisoner. If one thought, well, I'll go to another place, perhaps if I leave my village and go to the city, then I'll be able to live anonymously. No such luck. Everyone was required to carry an identity card which identified them explicitly as a former political prisoner.
Sambahan 5 tahun. 5 tahun. Kebak keburu 9 tahun. Sampai kita mencapai 15 tahun itu nggak tahu. Setelah pulang, pasangan saya yang telah silam, saya mencari. Ada berita sudah punya anak 5, anak 2-nya nggak apa-apa itu. Walaupun saya ini satu rela lah, daripada menderita seperti kita doakan dia semua hidup bahagia.
Saya hanya dijodohkan sama orang tua. Jadi Pak Tager sudah melamar saya itu saya belum tahu orangnya. Saya bilang sama ibu begitu, tapi ibu memaksa. Karena Pak Tager itu maksud saya kalau saya pengen ijab di gereja biar dia tidak jadi ya, karena dia bukan orang Katolik. Ternyata dia nurut. Ya, baru berapa bulan nikah. Kalau Pak Tager itu punya masalah apa dari luar, saya yang jadi bulan-bulanan disiksa seperti binatang. Lalu Pak Tager itu marah, saya dipukul sampai mulut saya berdarah.
Ini tahu bahwa Pak Tager itu pernah di penjara di Pulau Buru?
Pak Tager itu dapat panggilan untuk rapat ke Santi Aji itu. Baru dia cerita kalau dia itu dulu pernah dibuang ke Pulau Buru.
Menurut Bapak itu berpengaruh tidak di dalam keluarga Bapak?
Itu kita, itu letaknya bisa menimpa saya karena emosi saya itu kuat sekali. Kuat. Saya memikirkan masa lalu dan masa sekarang, ya. Kok bedanya lain? Nah ini. Saya ingat waktu ini di kepala saya sini kira benturan. Ya, benturan. Ya kadang-kadang ingat, kadang enggak. Kuat di masalah itu. Coba, saya waktu itu dengan saya hampir saya bunuh kok.
Bapak saya dibuang ke Nusa Kambangan. Bapak saya belum pulang, saya dijodohkan sama orang yang bekas tahanan seperti itu juga, baru pulang dari Pulau Buru. Dulu saya seperti apa ya Bu, sudah tidak punya harapan untuk hidup itu.
In the evening, for example, I would sit outside and say, where is God? You know, what does He let this happen? And there was a time when some priest would come, he would say, oh, please don't doubt God's love. Let's pray and ask for forgiveness and this and that and that. And I say, bullshit, you know. Even my footsteps express anger. The tension between life and death, also the tension between what's going to happen tomorrow, will we eat? I became very fierce.
Malah pembunuhan itu ya nampaknya sadis sehingga dia itu ya jiwanya amat tertekan. Nah, dia rasakan saat-saat seperti itu, rasakan dirinya pasti sudah tidak akan hidup lagi. Nah, dia merasakan dirinya sudah akan terbunuh begitu. Ini pertama penjejahan. Singadoni itu dan. Itu besoknya kira-kira tahun 65, bagian tahun 70 mau beli rumah. So anak tak manusia sakti ya. Magadang kan tadi itu mereka. Anu yo, ini badannya ini jantungnya rasanya kelap banget kita.
They sent me to Surabaya because my grandmother, she think that by living in Java that I'm going to be safe. You know, kind of new identity. You know, not the son of a communist. There is a relative from the military, and I lived with him. He was so tough, and he beat me every single day. Yeah, like punching me, and usually he liked to lock me in the bathroom. If I did something wrong, just lock me all the time. Eventually, I just sleep with prostitute in the area called Wonokromo. I was 7 years old. I was wild. I lived with the street kid there, you know, stealing mangoes, everything. Just steal. The prostitute looking after me, buy me clothes. In the morning, I have to go back to school. But now I begin to realize there must be millions of kids like this, like me. They just send you away. Maybe your family just scared of you. They cannot protect you, and they try to send you to the safe place, but the fact the place is a nightmare.
Mungkin saya terlalu kebal ya Pak, terlalu kebal dengan fitnah, dengan penderitaan itu. Setelah anak saya yang jadi korban itu baru saya seperti hancur betul hati saya itu Pak.
Mas Budi ingat dengan kedatangan kami setahun yang lalu?
Iya.
Rasanya bagaimana sekarang bisa ketemu Bapak dan Ibu di sini?
Senang. Karena saya belum pernah bisa sama kedua orang tua saya dan saudara saya, terutama kakak. Karena itu ya saya sudah terbiasa hidupnya itu sama bapak ibu. Susah atau sudah sedih atau sedang gembira tuh saya sama keluarga.
Tinggal di sini atau mau pulang?
Tahun depan tuh saya ingin pulang.
Kami, keluarga kami itu tinggal di desa Kalasan sana, pendatang. Dan kami orang miskin. Saya Katolik sendiri. Suami saya bekas tahanan politik. Masyarakat sana sepertinya tidak bisa menerima keluarga saya. Ya itu, lalu mereka mungkin marah ya. Lalu rumah saya mau dibakar. Akhirnya tidak jadi dibakar, cuma dirobohkan.
Kakak dari sebelah sana tuh suruh jalan dengan tangan kaki di atas dan di bawah itu dicambukin. Terus kalau jatuh diinjak-injak, terus di sini kepalanya dibentang sampai bocor tuh, terus diinjak-injak sampai keluar tinja yang masih muda.
Jadi sekarang itu saya tidak punya apa-apa, Pak. Soalnya saya tidak mau ya. Saya dikuasai rasa dendam, rasa sakit hati yang berlarut-larut di hati saya. Saya kalau mengajari anak saya supaya menghilangkan dendam, menghilangkan sakit hati, saya harus bisa memberi contoh. Itu Pak yang saya inginkan. Sebetulnya dada saya ini rasanya seperti mau pecah ya.
The main thing that happened in 1998 was a major economic crisis. This economic crisis led to the flight of capital, massive inflation, and to the breakdown of what until then had been the main underpinning of the Suharto regime, its economic strength. The fact that people were quite unprecedentedly out in the streets demanding democratization really left Suharto no other choice. President Suharto was forced to step down.
So after the fall of the new order, there was an increasing sense of openness in Indonesian society about what happened in 1965 and its aftermath. In Pak Kreta's case, after years of fear and isolation, he began slowly to open up.
Takut nembakin anak.
Nggih, takut.
Begitu pendidikan.
Kita mengungkap
kan.
Kita tempat yang sunyi tapi ada di tempat yang sunyi kita.
Oh, itu ya.
Kalau di rumputnya bisa suara-suara. Ada hitam-hitam itu bayangan.
Oh,
ada nangan kita ngenang umur kabeh. Coba misi kita yang suara-suara.
From a psychiatric perspective, Pak Kreta seems to have what could be termed delusions and hallucinations, which are centered around his interaction with his various classes of spirit beings. These are part of the Balinese cosmological pantheon, but most Balinese don't actually see or actually hear these spirit beings. He sees and he hears them, and these spirit beings speak to him.
Selama orang-orang di dalam tubuh berasa apa?
Perasaannya panas. Kalau hilang badan anunya itu, katanya maksudnya yang mengambil badan supaya kita membuat PKI, badan kita dipakai.
Terus kengken caraan panggilan ayo.
Nggak ada anu hubungan kan pakaian yang tuh bisa mengganggu dari luar bisa. Pakaian abrinya itu.
Pakaian abri.
Pakaian abri yang Coba, ya. Tapi lu dini bisa narik, lu dini ya bisa narik. Lagi melam lagi.
Oh, elam. Oh,
gentang pun.
Tapi ya dulu pernah ya saya sampai punya pikiran gini, kenapa ya saya punya masalah semakin lama semakin berat. Apa saya itu terlalu banyak dosa sehingga Tuhan itu menghukum saya. Tapi akhirnya saya bisa berpikir gini, ini adalah sentuhan Tuhan. Karena dengan penderitaan ini artinya saya harus saya semakin dekat pada Tuhan. Penderitaan saya tidak seberapa kalau dibandingkan dengan penderitaan Tuhan Yesus. Saya bilang gitu. Jadi kalau saya bilang gitu, rasanya di sini itu berkurang ya Pak, beban hati saya itu.
Sama hal ini kita ambil kesimpulan, ambil haluan. Saya pandang pada pekerjaan saja. Jadi kalau saya malah macam masa lalu, itu pikiran saya kalut. Jadi nanti dalam keluarga bisa kacau. Masalah perikatan itu. Jadi untuk menghilangkan jejak pikiran saya, jangan terlalu emosi.
Ya biarpun orang menghina ya, saya jalanin apa yang menjadi jalan hidup saya sekarang. Perasaan dendam itu masih ada dalam diri saya, tapi kalau saya berpikir untuk yang seperti itu apa istilahnya, sama saja membuat diri saya ini tambah menderita. Jadi untuk pelarian saya ya saya lari ke teman-teman saya, terus kemudian bermain musik sama-sama untuk menghilangkan hal-hal seperti itu secara pelan-pelan.
Mestinya ya pernah tuh Pak. Kehidupan saya tuh penuh dengan dendam. Maybe hatred made me live, but also killed me. I consider myself lucky because I came across Buddhism. Buddhist teaching says that you are the owner of your own deeds. The actions of killing were done by people who did not understand that killing was bad karma. I've seen also that people who are doing us harm died in a very miserable ways, very miserable ways. If I still keep the hatred, it's like I have a bomb inside me. Now, I think I have suffered enough. Why should I suffer more? Better than spending too much time on remembering the past. Why not doing good things for the future?
When I go back to Bali, I was just a wild boy. And then my uncle back from jail and began to see me. And I remember he said to me, Diego, you can do everything as naughty as you can, whatever. Okay, one thing I beg you, just don't give up education. If you give up education, I will never speak to you again in all your life. And then I become really smart in the class. Then I go to university. and then I start study about human rights, and then turn it into activist.
Yang tamat. Wis sama Kusira.
I look at the 1965 event as a major factor in shaping the whole Balinese culture. Oh, no, I understand why I hate my mom. I'm sure my mom is really, really political. But because she's a woman, she become like a scapegoat. All my family just blame my mom. So she has to go. Not because she doesn't love me, because there's limited what she can do. She's a victim too. People have tried to do that, to take me, for instance, with her. People will kill her. I think the state control in Bali is much more effective. I think that's the one thing I think about 65. You know, if people asking you why so many people got killed, you know, it's not so much because of the Balinese is more brutal or like that, because the power and the control and the networking of the Balinese is so so systematic. For example, the last person to see my father alive was next door.
Halo,
We pass every day. You know, we drink the same coffee. You know, hang around with the kids sometimes. Back to the house. That house, daughter. Finally, I think 2 years ago, I went to see him.
Sorry, pakai diangkat sepatu lu ada. Tahun 60. Ya, di sini aja kita duduk dah. Boleh ya, dah? Di bawah ya. Ya, ini Jumah ini pelaku dan Jumah itu korban. Yang kira sing jo sederhana gitu, betul.
Dan sebenarnya
Jumah pasti ada.
Nah, yang kira apa? Ada, udah saya ada.
Orang yang dengar kalau nak dingah yang patut patut kostoton. Beliau masih nyelamat dong, nak Jumah kau nem boleh lagi. Ini manfaatnya sepatut ada. Benar
ada itu. Pendapat mereka yang jadi korban, yang tiang pelaku itu, tiang anu lagi, yang tiang pelaku. Nah katakanlah pelaku yang menentukan dan memang melaksanakan apa yang saya inginkan pada waktu itu, kan? Kalau saya orang begitu, kan? Nungsing jeruan atau jeruan itu. Kalau saya orang begitu tidak masih jeruan itu saya nggak ada. Kalau saya memang benar begitu. Tuh korban dia anu tuh betul cing lagi nyut ini anu tuh.
My other uncle saw me come from that house. My uncle want to kill me. Just they think I'm a betray my own sense of family, you know. Why the fuck did you come to that house? Just, you know, they try to grab me like this. What the hell you want to find out from that house? Everything already clear, they go. But according to my uncle, like that, talking about reconciliation, and you know, my uncle perspective very clear. You know what they wish for is they wish the 65 come, happen one more time, so we can turn the other way around.
Gini, ya itu dia anaknya PKI, anak PKI dan lewat minggir gitu, saya di sini itu.
Aku nggak mau aja lihat wajahku di waktu itu. Wajah dulu tuh wajah betina lah, wajah waktu itu wajah tanah liat. Sekarang kan aku batu karang.
Kekuatan itu juga mendapatkan teman, mendapatkan saudara baru.
Dan di situ aku merasa cocok karena mengutamakan persaudaraan, Pak. Dan di situ aku diajari untuk meditasi.
Aku tuh seperti nggak akan lewat tempat itu lagi, tapi
perasaan ini sekarang lebih enak, lebih berani. Kan pernah ya Bu ya kejadian waktu aku kesana sendiri. Pertama gue ketemu anak Ibru Mobe itu, dia turun tuh tau mana kamu, aku langsung buka kedok lagi. Aku adiknya Chris, anaknya Mini. Langsung, kalau tak bunuh di sini sekalian, bunuh saja kalau kamu bisa bunuh aku. Kamu mungkin bisa bunuh aku, tapi masih ada budi yang lain.
There's still a silence over the mass killings. Many students, having studied Indonesian history, do not recognize that the killings actually occurred.
Even to this day, those who enacted the killings are perceived as heroes by many people in Indonesia, while the survivors of these killings are seen as the ones needing forgiveness.
I'm not sure that it's going to be possible to get to truth through reconciliation. It may be possible to get to reconciliation through truth. The people who died in 65 were ordinary people who had committed no crime, who were never accused formally of committing a crime. Those who killed them and organized the killings have, until now, 40 years later, not been brought to justice.
It is really important for Indonesians to cope, to deal, to discuss injustices of the past. Because otherwise, people would think that the victims of the 1965-66 affair were only those who were killed or sent as political prisoners. No, the victims of that event is all of us. So my concern is more about the future of this country. If killing 500,000 people is not a problem, then things might happen again and again.
Aku merasa hidupku tuh mengalami hidup di dua sisi, di dua dunia. Dunia yang gelap dan dunia yang terang, hitam dan putih. Saat power negatif hadir, keinginan saya ingin sekali saat ini, detik ini juga saya sampai di sana dan membalas dendam. Tapi kalau aku terus berada di jalur yang putih dan aku bisa mengontrol diriku, aku bisa kembali meraih dunia yang putih.